24. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're looking on the day where the French Parliament's been debating, but not voting, on an eventual intervention in Syria. We're looking at it with Socialist Member of Parliament Arnaud Leroy, Conservative Member of Parliament Jacques Millard, and Aitam Mana of the Syrian National Committee for Democratic Change. We were talking about remarks made by Syria's president this week. He granted a wide-ranging interview to French daily newspaper Le Figaro, Bashar al-Assad, warning he was the sole rampart to terrorism. There is no credible alternative. He says in that interview, the opposition has no popular base in Syria. It is made in France, made in Qatar, but certainly not made in Syria. It follows the orders of those who made it. Aitam Mana.
Yes, he is speaking about others. He cannot say the same thing about the Syrian National Coalition, National Coordination Body for Democratic Change, because we are inside the country and near than the presidential palace.
But you're having a hard time making your voice heard. The point is that the Syrian opposition is divided. It is fractious.
Yes, we
and
are
that is
the
one of the
opposition.
problems. There is people who've come on the set over the past couple of days have been saying one of the big difficulties is if you oust Assad, what's the alternative?
We are the opposition of the interior, not the opposition of five-star hotels. And I must tell you that Assad cannot say the same thing about us, because all people in Syria will laugh if he is speaking like that. But we must come back to the discussion, because Mr. Leroy gave his approach about the question. I participated as a human rights defender in 4 missions for chemical weapons. I participated about 85 missions all over the world. And I know what is the reglementation to work. And I was in New York in the debate about this mission in Syria. The states, the delegation of USA was against a great mandate. Why? Because it was about Khan al-Assal. And we know that Khan al-Assal is not the regime, but the terrorist of Al-Qaeda. And because they spoke about that, the responsibility of the regime, they limited the mandate. And France and UK didn't say anything. Russian and Chinese were for a great mandate. This is very important to know. Now we say that this mission don't have the right to speak about because of you. It is not because of Russian or Chinese. And because of this idea that if it is the terrorist, people will say in Western country that terrorist is more important than free army. And we are supporting terrorists in Syria.
Let's pick up on that point, because one of the
second point.
But the big issue.
Second point. If you have a position, I have all the respect for you. But now, what is your position? Your position is wait the American Congress and decide. You are behind the American decision. And all what you say about chemical weapons and ethical and morals question is theory. The real, very bad reality that you don't have your own decision. Your decision is dependent of the states and of the Congress. And I hope that the deputies of the people in France don't accept to give a mandate to the Congress for this action.
Arnaud Leroy?
I mean, I fully disagree on the fact that the French Assembly is looking at the result of the Congress. But, I mean, let's be realistic as well. Who is today the main power in the world? US. I mean, I don't have the pretension to say that France will be able to go to Syria alone.
You say that, but the French president said in a statement yesterday, if the Congress's decision is not positive, and I quote, France will not act alone.
Yes. And it has been said today in the Assembly, we have partners, EU partners. We have the Turkey as well looking at a solution. And I fully concur with what Lord Weber said. It's not by going to the war. It seems today, looking at all the evidence we have, the information we gathered for months and months, that the only option consisting in speaking, trying to look for political decision is not sufficient anymore. We need a push. And the push is maybe an arm solution.
All right.
Just to say as well, because we are looking at Syria, but what is behind as well? And it's an important point in the French position. It's the risk of proliferation. We cannot look at the Syrian debate alone. Syria is today the main theater of risks. But if we don't give a clear signal to Assad, today, tomorrow, what will be the answer as well of the international community to Iran, potentially, North Korea, and potentially other countries?
We're going to pick up on that point because it's one that Barack Obama made in a different version earlier this Wednesday. And by the way, divisions in the United States Congress mirroring those in Britain and France, divisions that go across party lines there.
This is something that the United States as a country needs to do. I'm going to support the president's call for action. I believe my colleagues should support this call for action.
While we all feel the actions by the Assad regime are reprehensible, I don't think there are any of us here that are willing to support the possibility of having combat boots on the ground.
All right, let's go to Washington. Correspondent Philip Crowther. Philip, give it to us straight. Does Barack Obama have the votes on Capitol Hill to get his resolution for intervention in Syria?
Well, the straight answer right now is that this will be a very, very tight vote, probably in both houses, in both the House of Representatives and in the Senate. It's a little bit too early to say now, but time is running out. Congress reconvenes on Monday of next week, on the 9th of September. There is that possibility that we could even see a first vote in the Senate on a military intervention in Syria as early as that Monday when the Senate reconvenes. Meanwhile, what we're all doing here in Washington is coming up with our very own whip count, meaning we're trying to calculate who might be leaning no, who might be leaning yes. And you heard there from John Boehner, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. That is a big Republican voice. He is very much on board, but that does not necessarily mean that all Republicans will follow him, especially in the House that is controlled by Republicans. This is going to be very, very tight indeed. And one opinion that's been really interesting over the last few days is that of Senator John McCain. He is very much for a military intervention in Syria, but he is not for the resolution that appears to be coming before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee as we speak right now. He wants a bigger intervention, an intervention that might be able to change the momentum in Syria, whereas other senators and members of the House of Representatives want a smaller footprint and certainly no boots on the ground, and there are others who don't want the United States to intervene at all. There are a lot of different opinions, all of which will mean that this is going to be a really, really tight vote and a big moment for Barack Obama.
And just very briefly, Philip, how torn is public opinion on this?
I'll tell you what, it's not really, because the polls, they just keep on confirming that over half of the US population does not want the United States to intervene. What we're hearing from members in the House and senators is that they are fielding a lot of calls from their constituents right now, almost all of them telling them to vote no, to vote against a military intervention in Syria. And really, senators and members in the House are really under pressure now. They've been put under pressure by Barack Obama when he said, you will have to say what you believe in. They will all have to vote. They will have to take their responsibility in a sense. So you'll see all these senators and members giving their opinion now in the next few days, possibly as early as Monday. And that's when they'll really be showing their cards. And there's that certain responsibility, of course, towards their constituents who don't want the United States to go into another war or intervene militarily. Remember, Secretary of State John Kerry has been insisting the United States will not be going into a war here, just a military intervention. But still, a large part of Americans very much against this.
All right, the ghosts of Afghanistan and Iraq weighing very much on this debate. Thanks for that, Philip Crowther in Washington. Jacques Millard?
Yes, I think I perfectly understand the public opinion. Why? Because in fact, the way that Hollande or Obama said they will intervene. They said we are just targeting few sides, etc.
What do you think of John McCain's position? If you're going to do it, don't do it halfway. Go the whole
Yeah,
hog.
well, and this is it. In fact, this is the main point. What will happen? Take the hypothesis that United States and France strike Syria, which is, in my view, illegal if there is no UN mandate, and a big mistake for the consequences of it. You will see that Bashar is still there. You will see that the Syrian army is not broken. And then people will say, especially some of the opposition say, you have to carry on because, in fact, he doesn't understand the signal. And step by step, you will go up. And that's very, very dangerous to where it goes. Because when you use force in the international situation, you know when you start, you never know when you finish it. And the best, the most difficult things, how to handle war. We've seen that in Lebanon, we've seen that in Afghanistan, we've seen that in Iraq, which has been a chaotic situation that it is still at life now. 1 million dead. Saddam has maybe killed many people, I agree. But result of it, the poor Iraqi people have suffered that much.
All right, so we heard Arnaud Leroy complain about the prospects of inertia, of doing nothing, what that would do. And you're worried about. And
I don't say we should not do nothing. I think that since the UN experts have been there, they are going to establish that there's been chemical weapons, and then it will be the duty of the Security Council to say what do we do. I am pretty sure that the Russians will move because they cannot accept that. Otherwise, they will lose a lot of things. And never forget also that we have to consider the entire situation everywhere around. And this is true. We have to do something, but there is no military action which will solve the problem.
Haitham Mana, you've been to Moscow several times over the past 2.5 years. Do you think the Russians are really going to change?
I don't think so. Mr. Lavrov asked me what was the role of Russia in the crisis, the Libyan crisis. I said to him, 0%. He asked me, what is the place of Russia in the Syrian crisis? I said to him, at least 50%. He said, how you ask us to change our politics now?
So they're still angry about Libya?
I think that the Russian position will still very strong, and the best thing of the Russian position is to go to Geneva too. Yes. And here I'm very sad because in 15 months, tell me what the Quai d'Orsay did for Geneva too. Nothing. He didn't contact us. The most important thing was the question, give us a list of weapons, give us a list of humanitarian help, and how to send some people to help the Syrian army. They received Salim Idris, 25 numbers of time more than politics. And this is the mistake of France.
So you're saying that for now, there's no signs that Russia's going to change its position. Just a comment on Twitter. How can we think it is not the West's war when the American president says he should defend U.S. national interests in the region? On his way to St. Petersburg for the G20 summit, the U.S. president was asked about his decision last Friday to reverse himself and to go to Congress to consult. Barack Obama replied, and it's a bit similar to what you were saying, Arnaud Leroy. He said it's all about the conflicts that could yet come still.
Under international law, Security Council resolution, or self-defense or defense of an ally provides a clear basis for action. But increasingly, what we're going to be confronted with are situations like Syria, like Kosovo, like Rwanda, in which we may not always have a Security Council that can act. It may be paralyzed for a whole host of reasons. And yet we've got all these international norms that we're interested in upholding.
Jacques Millard, you think the Russians are going to move. What happens if they don't? And that's what Barack Obama is saying. He's saying, what if What if the Russians don't budge?
First of all,
What do you
I'm
do?
sorry, Mr. Obama is not the sheriff. Okay? We are no more at the time of Suez. We are no more in the neo-colonial period. This is, we are not going, the world is not obliged to obey Mr. Obama. And Mr. Obama, when he said something absolutely wrong in the question of Rwanda. There was a decision of the UN because it was a genocide. And France moved along because there was a UN decision. First of all, Kosovo was...
Hold on, let me interrupt you about Rwanda. That decision came late. Obama, when he
because the
mentioned
Americans did not want to move.
And Bill Clinton described it as the single biggest regret of his presidency. Many of Obama's top aides are from the Clinton administration. In France, we have this precept in the law, which is non-assistance to people in danger.
No, that's, I'm sorry, this is...
At what point you have 2 million refugees,
refugees,
add to that all the displaced
refugees
people.
Are refugees.
You have, at what point is there a moral imperative to act?
First of all, you don't speak of morality in international. You speak of international law, principle, and realities. That's a very big mistake to try to move things and try. When I'm absolutely upset by this kind of things. We are going to make war in the name of human rights, and at the end, you kill 10 times more people that have been killed at the first time. So I think we have to be a bit realistic. This situation is awful, I agree. But this is also true that we have means to act, and I'm sure that this international situation will come to an end just because at the time in civil war, people are fed up by war and they will come to Geneva. Because I agree with you, the only answer which is possible is Geneva 2, so that we all come, even the Iranian, because I can tell you one thing in the Western world. People don't want to invite the Iranians, who can have a lot of influence over Bashar, because they say we fear that if we invite them, they will deal their nuclear program against serenity and peace in Syria. What does it mean, please? This is rubbish. We have to
So invite the Iranians.
The Iranians.
Yes.
We have to bring everyone around the table.
Arnaud Leroy?
On the last point of Jacques Meyer, I fully agree. I think if you want to find a political solution, you should have no exclusive, as we say. Everybody should be able to sit around the table to find a solution. I mean, let's be realistic as well. You said France didn't walk towards Geneva 2. I don't have the feeling that this government and the previous one didn't try to find a political solution to the Syrian crisis. I would like to come back on one point you said, and I fully concur on the analysis, which is the Libyan precedent. The fact that we use this resolution 1973, adopted in 2005, putting a new liability on states to protect their own people. It's the legal basis of the action in Libya. I remember that at the time when we said, okay, we will organize the no-fly zone. No, it's not for hunt to Gaddafi. If you look at Chinese and Russian, if you look at the months and weeks of the action in Libya, you see clearly that the mandate from the beginning was not enough, and quickly it swaps. So in terms of international relation, I fully understand the position of Russia and China being a bit reluctant, saying, okay, you said the same in Libya.
You trap us once, we don't want to be trapped
Where
twice.
are we today? We are in a position where we need to reconstruct confidence among partners. That's where we are, where we stand.
All right, let's hear what the Russian president had to say. Will Russia budge? It was the question that was put to its president in an interview with the Associated Press.
As for the video footage showing the dead children allegedly killed in the chemical attack, it is horrible. The question is who did it? Who is to blame for that? The footage doesn't give answers to those questions.
What would Russia's position be if you became convinced that it was by the government of Syria? Would you agree to military action?
I do not exclude this, but I would like to draw your attention to one absolutely key aspect. In line with international law, only the UN Security Council could sanction the use of force against a sovereign state. Any other pretext or method which might be used to justify the use of force against an independent sovereign state is inadmissible and can only be interpreted as an aggression.
Same thing in Georgia. Oh, pardon.
Haitham Mana, you're saying Russia's not going to budge. We heard a little bit of a wiggle there at the beginning of that answer, but then saying, let's just go back to the UN, let's just stick with what international law says, and basically saying that he's very averse to any outside intervention. What happens now?
I met Mr. Lavrov 4 times or 5, and Bogdanov.
And now we're above 100,000 dead
10.
in Syria.
Yes, and I saw the Russian delegation in The Hague last week. I know how they try to propose to us something. And I met also the Minister of Foreign Affairs in China twice. And he said to us, everything inside UN, we will be okay if it is in
Well, they keep
the
vetoing
limit.
resolutions.
Yes.
And some of them pretty
And
lightly
they gave
worded.
me all the time the example of Geneva communique. They said, when we had Geneva communique, immediately we use it in the UN Council, Security Council. That's mean, seriously, the most important clearness in position was from Russia more than the states. The states changed many times. They asked me one time to tell Russia that they stop any cooperation
they keep vetoing
in
resolutions.
Geneva
They
2.
veto resolutions.
4 days after they said to me, no, we will go again to Geneva 2. Never Russian.
They keep vetoing resolutions. They veto resolutions that are watered down.
Yes, for exactly. We must call a cat a cat. When you have your text, when Mr. Hague have his text and impose this text as it is and say you vote or not, I refuse it. Not only the Russian delegation.
Jacques Millard was saying a moment ago how the use of chemical weapons does change things, and perhaps there will be there's already you were saying a change on the part of the Iranians for sure. We've seen it, and also the Russians. Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan doesn't think it's about chemical weapons. He thinks chemical weapons are only part of this issue.
It's very interesting that Putin says he would support an operation if Assad used chemical weapons. I would like to underline something. It's a crime to kill people regardless of the type of weapon used. That is a crime against humanity. Does that mean that you can kill with jets, helicopters, tanks, snipers, and that wouldn't be taken as a crime? And when chemical weapons are used, it is suddenly a crime.
Concretely, Arnaud Leroy, as we go into this G20 summit, as we go into that, what's going to be a raucous vote in the U.S. Congress next week, does he have a point, Turkish Prime Minister?
I mean, he has a point. I mean, the other point is France, UK, US, international community, Ban Ki-moon as well, put as a red line is the kind of formulation used, the use of chemical weapons. Today we are there. I fully agree with what Erdogan said. I mean, we have 100,000 dead people already, 2.5 million refugees, not killed by chemical weapons. We cannot say nothing. We cannot stay mute looking at this 2.5 years that it is going on. At one stage, we have to, it's a responsibility. Either we say we don't act or we take action. It's a question. I mean, at one stage, we should try to stop, to discuss and act.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. Arnaud Leroy, Jacques Millard, I want to thank you. I want to thank Haitham Mana, and thank you for joining us here. We'll, of course, continue to follow the developments in the build-up to that G20 that starts Thursday in St. Petersburg. Stay with us. You're watching France 24.